What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with a new video. I thought that you guys might like to take a look at my two Grand Moff Tarkins. I have two different versions here for you to take a look at. First is the Vintage Collection version that came out in 2012. And then I also recently picked up the Retro Collection version of Grand Moff Tarkin. And I just, for whatever reason, I thought it would be kind of a fun thing to look at the differences. And I also pulled down my comic 2-pack that I had graded a few months ago. And I also put together a fairly interesting, at least to me, segment on the history of the figure, some other different molds available, a couple of prototypes I found, all kinds of fun little information about our favorite enemy that died in the very first Star Wars movie. So here we are. This is the first one. I just picked this up fairly recently, and I got a very fair deal on it. This is Grand Moff Tarkin with the life-size Darth Maul statue offer. This is the 2012 Vintage Collection release, and it is an awesome, awesome figure. Let's see if we can get a better zoom here. There we go. I really love that close-up on the card back of Peter Cushing, and he just, you know, I know that the figure is often railed against for maybe not looking quite enough like him, but versus some of the other releases that I'll show you in a second, I just think it's such a great figure. This one goes for a fair amount of money now, and I picked this one up already graded. It was listed on eBay, and I basically got it for the price that they go for ungraded. And I knew that it was a fairly expensive one because it's one that I've always wanted, but I just didn't feel like spending the money. But when this one popped up for the same or actually less than where they have typically sold ungraded, I was like, well, I got to do it now. This is just an awesome item. This is again the 2012 release, and it is in flawless condition. It's got the Darth Maul offer. This obviously also did come without the Darth Maul offer. I have also seen a Canadian release of this card, but it's a U90 uncirculated 90 near mint plus to mint. The card got a 90, the blister got a 90, the figure got a 95, and what an awesome, awesome card back. But look at that face sculpt. I really, really dig this figure, and I don't have obviously too many of these older Vintage Collection releases, but you know, the fact that it comes with the mouse droid and it's got kind of a cloth goods kind of finish to the lower half of the torso, and that face just screams evil. I love it. But a really nice, clear, crisp close-up of Peter Cushing and the Star Wars racetrack, unpunched, beautiful. This is VC98, and I'll kind of first start off here maybe with a further away shot so you guys can take a look at the back. But this is the U.S. card. There is also a Canadian card. I'm sure there's also a Tri-Logo card. I have not seen them for sale anytime recently, but this is VC98, and it has a few of the others in the same wave that were released with Grand Moff Tarkin. It has Oddball, Nikto, which is a fairly expensive figure, Star Killer, which is a very expensive figure, and then Shea Vizsla is probably, of all of these, Shea Vizsla is easily the most expensive. That one, ungraded, can go for 200 plus, 250 even. And I did see one that was graded, that sold for almost 300. So Shea Vizsla is a very difficult one to pick up. I do have a Star Killer engraving that was signed by Sam Witwer, the actor who portrayed Star Killer in the Force Unleashed video game. So that's going to be an awesome, awesome set. Nikto is very pricey as well. But to get this Grand Moff Tarkin for the price I got it for, I'm very, very excited. Some of the other figures that were in the wave, or at least nearby in the other waves, Darth Malgus, which I do have a Canadian card of him. Luke Hoth. We got the Anakin, Imperial Navy Commander, Vader. Luke Skywalker. I assume that's the Saber Construction deleted scene version. Colonel Kraken, the Falcon crew. We got the Mon Calamari Rebel pilot, and then Princess Leia. Again, I think that one also is the deleted scene version of her. But a beautiful card back and very high grade, and I was very excited to pick this one up. But so this is the graded 2012 VC98. But I also did pick up, finally, I've been meaning to do it, I've just been lazy about it. I finally found one that was pretty fairly priced. But this is the Retro Collection version of Grand Moff Tarkin. I would love to know that Jim Swearingen is the designer, the senior Kenner toy designer that designed 11 of the first 12 figures in the vintage Kenner line back in 1977. He also designed some of the vehicles and Boba Fett and a few others. So he's kind of legendary in the Kenner world for the Kenner line of figures. But the first question that I would ask him after introducing myself and saying I'm a big fan and probably fawning all over him like a fanboy, my first question to him would be, why was there never a Grand Moff Tarkin released in the vintage Kenner line? At a minimum, he should have been a first 21 figure, in my opinion. But I do think it's kind of highway robbery that they never released in the Kenner line a vintage version of Grand Moff Tarkin. And I'm glad that Hasbro kind of made things right by making this figure. This is a pack-in for the Escape from the Death Star Retro Collection board game, which itself was a re-release of the 1977 version of that board game. I have neither of those. I just picked up the Retro Collection Tarkin by itself, but this is a great figure. And, you know, obviously I've been on a little bit of a kick with the Retro Collection with the Remnant Stormtrooper. I'll put a link to that at the end of this video in case you want to see that, but I did pick him up. But this is the next one I picked up, and it's, you know, the face sculpt, I think it matches the Kenner style and pretty closely mimics the technology of the time and things like that. But obviously there's no comparison to the Vintage Collection in terms of the mold. But I think in terms of mimicking the vintage Kenner figures, it does a great job. Great job. Really nice paint work. It comes with kind of an Stormtrooper Imperial Blaster. I think it's the EE11 is what they call that. I could be incorrect, but anyway, a really great, you know, version of the car back. It's got that ugly retro sticker, but a really nice figure, and I think it does a great job to kind of mimic the old school style of the vintage Kenner figures. And I'm happy to finally pick it up. And so here's the comparison, just really quick, of these two figures. Obviously, they're not meant to be the same, but I do think it's kind of cool to kind of check out how the two of them look next to each other and how the Retro Collection version gives it kind of an old school vibe to it. But a really nice release by Hasbro. I think this came out in 2018, towards the end of 2018, if memory serves. But here they are together. Now, while we're on the subject of Grand Moff Tarkin, I do have another release that's graded in my collection. This is the 2007. I'm going to pull the camera back just a little bit. This is the 2007 release of the 30th anniversary 2-pack. This is a comic 2-pack. The Dark Horse comic logo in the upper left. It has Governor Tarkin along with a Stormtrooper. Now, these are highly stylized figures, most of these in these comic packs. But this is one I picked up and had graded by Collector Archive Services this summer. And you can see the differences. He's got the paint scheme of a Governor instead of a Grand Moff. And a fairly nice face sculpt. I'm going to dig into that in a little bit more detail. I'm pretty positive that this is a repaint of the 2005 Revenge of the Sith version of Governor Tarkin. Now, I did some research to find out if anyone else thought that, and I can't find anything else that says that. But this figure does have the 2005 date stamp, even though this comic pack was released in 2007. And I'm pretty sure that this is a repaint of that 2005 Revenge of the Sith version. I also, for whatever reason, I really like this Stormtrooper. It's kind of strange to have all these blue shadows, but it kind of gives you the vibe of a comic book with the red eyes and kind of the blue shadows like you'd see in a comic book. So I thought that was kind of a cool touch. And so I really like these comic 2-packs. I've only got a couple of these graded in my collection, but this is one that you can pick up ungraded for relatively inexpensive. There are some in the comic pack collection that are very, very pricey. Open Seasons is one that comes to mind. That one can go for $500 or more ungraded. But this is my graded example. And this one came back with a 90, straight 90s overall, 2007 30th anniversary release. But since we're on the subject of Governor / Grand Moff Tarkin, I thought you guys would like to take a look at this one. It's got these comic 2-packs, I think, are criminally underappreciated and have such great artwork on them. I just really love them. And here's a couple of others in that wave. We got Han in the Stormtrooper outfit and Chewbacca, and it looks like you got a Rebel Fleet Trooper and a stylized Vader that's kind of purplish and black, but really great packaging with these. It's very difficult to find these near mint, though, because of all the corners and the size of them, and the size of the blister. It's very, very difficult to find near mint examples of these comic packs. But I did manage to snag this one and get it graded, and I'm glad I did, because it's such a cool figure. But anyway, we're gonna cut here. And I put together some other kind of interesting information on the history of the releases of Grand Moff Tarkin, as well as a few other kind of interesting bits and bobs of information. So stick around, and I'll be right back. The very first Grand Moff Tarkin figure was released in 1997 as part of the Power of the Force 2 line. And I'm showing you a couple of examples here. The one on the left is the non-foil label, and the one on the right is the foil label. I actually really like this figure a lot, despite the oversized weapons. And I did find a nice write-up from JediBusiness.com. I'm going to read their breakdown of the figure, and also include a link in the description for this video in case you want to go to their website. I go there a lot just to find general information about release dates and things like that, and find the website to be very useful. But here's what Jedi Business had to say. When this figure was released, it was a big deal for Star Wars fans because it was the first time that Grand Moff Tarkin was being made available as an action figure. The figure included 2 weapons, a blaster and a blaster rifle, and Tarkin featured the basic 6 points of articulation, which was typical for the 1990s. Unfortunately, the head sculpt is off and doesn't resemble any likeness to the late Peter Cushing. Besides that, the ranking on Tarkin's left chest is wrong and not identical to what was seen in the movie. The figure itself can hold both weapons securely, and it can stand very safely as well. Overall, Grand Moff Tarkin was a great figure for its time, but compared with modern figures, it doesn't hold up too well. Well, I'm not going to compare it to modern figures because I don't think that comparison is fair for a 30-year-old figure, let's say. But they are correct that the face sculpt kind of doesn't really match Peter Cushing's, and I didn't know that about the insignia being wrong. But in general, I really like this figure a lot. It's not very expensive at all, and for any of you Grand Moff Tarkin fans, you can pick one up for $5 to $10 fairly easily. Also, I want to point out that if you are familiar with the Power of the Force 2 line, then you know that there are plenty of different card backs to choose from. Really quickly, I just wanted to point out 2 other examples of the Grand Moff Tarkin on alternate card backs. On the far left, you have the US release of the freeze frame action slide version. And then on the right, you have the tri-logo foil version. There are an assortment, dozens and dozens of different card backs for some of these figures in the Power of the Force 2 line. And here are just 2 more examples as a reference point. And since we're on the subject of the Power of the Force 2 version of Grand Moff Tarkin, I wanted to show you 2 Power of the Force 2 first shot prototypes that sold fairly recently in the Facebook group Deal or No Deal. I happen to remember them coming up for sale, and I found the photos of them and wanted to include them here. I really wanted to buy them, but I did not. The far left one has all black appendages, a clear torso, and then a peach unpainted head. And then on the far right, it's actually a clear torso with mostly pretty close to factory finish colors, but it looks like the 2 arms are unpainted, with one of the arms being blue. Power of the Force 2 first shot prototypes, engineering prototypes and such, have really gone up in value recently. I'd say over the last 2 or 3 years, what used to be $100 can go for $200 or more, and oftentimes very expensive depending on the figure. Both of these sold relatively inexpensive, around $100 to $150, which is about the floor right now for Power of the Force 2 prototypes. And of course, if they have the accessories that they come with, they tend to go for a lot more if they're first shot prototype accessories. I really like these first shots, and obviously Tarkin and his mold avoided the same fate that a lot of the Power of the Force 2 figures did that had the oversized, bulky sculpt. He looks relatively normal. I wanted to give you guys a couple of more interesting bits of information on some of the later releases for either Grand Moff or Governor Tarkin. On the left-hand side is the Death Star Briefing 7-pack Saga Collection 2006 version. This 7-pack is actually pretty expensive these days and is a really cool set. This figure is mentioned by Jedi Business to be a repack of the 2005 Revenge of the Sith version of Governor Tarkin. I'll show you that one in a second, but it makes sense since they both have the exact same 2005 date stamp. But interestingly, Jedi Business does not mention the right-hand figure. The right-hand figure is from the 2-pack comic version that I just showed you in my own collection. This is the Governor Tarkin from that 2-pack. This one also has the 2005 date stamp, but Jedi Business does not mention that this is a repaint. But looking at the two figures side by side, it's pretty clear to me that they are both the same figure mold, but one is painted as a Grand Moff on the left, and one is painted as a Governor on the right. Anyway, this is probably interesting only to people like me, but I just thought it was an important, kind of interesting tidbit of information. Now let's close it out with a couple of final remaining Tarkin releases that I thought were worth mentioning. Finally, before we end this video, I wanted to show you three other somewhat interesting Grand Moff Tarkin figures. On the far left is the 2005 release for the Revenge of the Sith. It is obviously the younger actor who portrayed a younger Governor Tarkin. And in the middle is the Black Series Grand Moff Tarkin 6-inch figure that came out around the end of 2018 and into 2019. Honestly, this is one of the best figures I have seen in the Black Series line. It's a great figure, great mold, great sculpt, and it comes with the Imperial torture droid or whatever it's called. It's a really great figure. I used to have it, and unfortunately I did sell it. And finally, on the far right is the Power of the Force. I believe it's a 12-inch version, and he comes also with the Imperial interrogator droid, so to speak. That is not a very good likeness, and obviously it came out during the mid to late 1990s with the Power of the Force line, and there are not many of those that are very good in that size range. All three of these are relatively inexpensive, but if you're a huge Tarkin fan, you can't go wrong with any of them to add to your collection. That's all I really had for this episode from the Action Figure Grader. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.